Awesome. So let's go ahead and get started. So for most of you guys that know, we presented a lot of information on the mass paid family and medical leave last year. Or about a year and a half ago now, when the tax started. So if for any reason, you know nothing about this law yet, you're not withholding tax, things of that nature, you're currently not in compliance. So just make sure you reach out to us separately if that's the case. We won't go over the certain tax implications, the notices to employees, those types of things. Today is going to be a quick review of what you can actually use it for, and then we're going to go through the actual process. So the process on the employee end and what the employers can expect to see. As a little bit of a housekeeping, make sure that you put all questions in the question and answer box. The chat will not be monitored. We have Erica Berry here with us as well today. She will be monitoring the Q&A, and she's actually just coming back from mass paid family leave, so she'll be able to speak to her personal experience as well, which will be great. So we're just going to jump right into it. So what we'll cover today: when did it or does it, because some of it is not capable of applying for yet, go into effect, who is eligible and what it can be used for, how does it differ and work with the other kind of federal and state laws that we have, FMLA, things of that nature, how to apply, how to approve, and then we will have an open Q&A at the end. For timing purposes, I don't see this going over half hour to 45 minutes, depending on how many questions we get. So we should be able to kind of get all the way through it fairly quickly and get you back to your day. Just a little disclaimer, this material is not legal advice. If you have specific questions to your business, definitely reach out to a business attorney and someone that specializes in these types of benefits. So we're actually going to start with a quick poll just so that I kind of know where everybody's already at, what topics we should really delve deep into, and which ones you kind of already know about. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll. If you guys could go ahead and click on those. I'll wait just another 30 seconds or so for anyone that hasn't voted yet. Okay, awesome. We're about 90% there. So I'm going to go ahead and end the polling. I will share the results with you guys. So it looks like most of you, the majority, don't have any claims, but you are withholding the tax. That's good. That means you're in compliance. And then you'll have all the tools, hopefully, that you need before you actually see a claim come through. One of you has not held the tax. I highly suggest you reach out to us. Shoot an email over to our info@StraightLine. We'll provide all of our contact information at the end, just so we can make sure that you get into compliance and that side of it, because we won't be going over the actual tax that you're supposed to withhold today. And then 3 of you are in process of claiming or approving. So this is perfect time for you to get questions answered. We were on a meet with the actual state last week. So we do have a little bit more information as to certain delays and things of that nature. So we will dive right in. So as a quick review, you're able to use this to, basically they did it so that we can have paid family leave. It began to be able to take it in January of 2021. In July of 2021, you'll be able to take the leave to care for family members and things of that nature. That's not launched yet. This is up to 12 weeks to care for a family member, or family bonding, meaning maternity leave, paternity, and up to 20 weeks for your own illness. It applies to all businesses and employers that employ 1 or more Massachusetts workers, with very limited exceptions, meaning if you work for yourself and you opt out, things of that nature, or if you have a policy that is better than the state's, you're able to opt out. Employees are not required to complete a probationary period before before being granted leave. So what that means is that if you have an employee start with you, but they hit all of the eligibility, they've hit certain quotas, then they're able to take it even if they've only been with you for a week, which leads right into that next one. The leave is portable. It's not employer specific. So who's covered, right? Any employees by the state, subcontractors, if they make up 50% or more of your workforce, you're supposed to include those in your PMFL withholdings, self-employees who have elected coverage, and a former employee who meets all the financial eligibility requirements and has not been separated for more than 26 weeks. So here's where we get into that financial eligibility. So we talked about being able to collect this benefit even if they've only worked for you for a short period of time. That's able to happen if they meet these other standards. So they must have, it's the same as unemployment insurance. For those of you that are familiar with those, it's at least 4,700 and 30 times the weekly benefit rate they must have earned in wages before they're able to claim this. What can it be used for? So family leave, which we see being probably the most used. A lot of small businesses in Massachusetts can't afford to, include maternity leave. So this is kind of a replacement for that. To bond with a child during the first 12 weeks after birth or after placement for adoption or foster care. Qualifying arising out of active duty or notification of impending call or order to activate duty of a family member, to care for a family member who is a covered service member, or to care for a family member with a serious health condition. They can also be used for medical leave, so that's serious health condition of a covered employee, a spouse, domestic partner, child, parent of spouse, domestic, grandchild, grandparent, sibling. The bolded text here, so anything that you see bolded is actually the difference between PFML and federal FMLA. So in federal FMLA, the ones that are bolded here are not allowed to be used to take leave. So the state's actually more generous. Other things that we just think that you should be aware of, the employee, if they do go on this leave, you must restore them to the previous position or equivalent position. You're not able to put them at a lower role or not accept them back after taking leave. The employer cannot compel the employee to exhaust any sick, vacation, or personal time prior to, during leave, but no double dipping. So they can decide how they want to handle this. They can use all of that time if you're willing to give it to them before they start the leave, but they don't have to. They can take this leave and then upon return still have their sick, vacation, and personal time. Notice by employee should be at least 30 days prior to leave or as soon as possible if delay for reasons beyond employee's control. So what does that mean? It basically means 30 days if they know something is going to come. So, if you know you're going to use this for maternity leave, hopefully 30 days prior to giving birth that you're pregnant. So make sure that you give your employee a heads up. But if there is something, a medical issue that happens right away, you are able to take it right away. There's not a 30-day waiting period or anything like that to apply after getting sick or having somebody fall sick. Administrative review is available to employee. An employee can appeal the denial. So if your employer does deny this request, it can be appealed. So how does it work with other federal and state laws? So it runs concurrent, which means you can use them back to back and at the same time of the Mass Parental Leave Act, the Federal Family and Medical Leave Act, and the Massachusetts Earned Sick Time Act. It does not run concurrent with the Domestic Violence Leave Act or the Small Necessities Leave Act. We won't go into what all of those are and what they mean, but if you have questions, we can certainly talk afterwards about what those are and if they apply to you. So this has been a big question for us, the difference between PFML and FMLA. The FMLA is a federal law. It provides unpaid job protected leave to certain employees, but that's 50 or more. So if most of the people on here that I know of are in small businesses, so they actually don't have to comply with FMLA. But the biggest difference is that it provides unpaid leave. As you guys saw with the bolded items earlier, it's a little bit more specific and doesn't allow as much grandparents and things of that nature. And Massachusetts, the difference is it definitely has different waiting periods, but also it's a paid leave program and every Massachusetts employee is eligible to take it. So we're going to go ahead and show our next poll. We're about to, I know we kind of went through that quickly. It's a review for most of you. So We are going to launch this next poll to see exactly who we're talking to make sure when we're talking about the actual approval process and the application process, we delve into whoever needs the information the most. So we're going to go ahead and launch this next poll. Here we are. So we're basically just trying to find out who we're talking to make sure that we're giving you guys the proper information. So I'll give it another 30 seconds or so. Okay, awesome. So I'll go ahead and share the results there. So it looks like all of you are either employers or HR professionals. So yes, you will, of course, need to know the employee side, and we're going to go over that because I'm sure people are going to ask you, how do I apply for this? In that end of it, so you can see what's happening. And then we'll really focus on the employer side as well, so that you guys know what you're going to have to be responsible for if someone does apply. Okay, so how to apply on the employee side. So of course you have to create a login first. It's actually really pretty simple. Like I said, Erica on this has already gone through this process, so she's definitely going to talk at the end of this and give her personal experience. But first things first is they have to create a login. It's right through the mass.gov website. And then they ask them certain information, the basics: name, phone, address, date of birth, social, license number. And this is what they're actually going to ask for. So they're going to ask for a copy of your license to verify that you are who you say you are. Employer EIN, if you don't know this, you're all employers, so you definitely do. But if somebody reaches out to you and asks how to apply, they're going to need the EIN number. They can see their W-2, or ask your HR person, whoever does your payroll, or ask their employer directly. They are going to ask them if they told the employer and when. So that's really important. It delves into that 30-day notice. Their work schedule, whether they're fixed or not consistent week to week. If they're not consistent week to week, it's actually going to bring you to a next screen where you enter your average hours by day. You put in 0 for the days that you don't typically work. The type of leave, so those are the kind of options that we talked about earlier: bonding, family, medical. The date of birth, if it is bonding leave, and they will ask for proof of that child's information too. So birth certificate upon their birth will be uploaded. And then continuous, this is the one that gets kind of tricky. So continuous is, one solid chunk of time. They're going to take all of it at once. Reduced leave, which means they're going to share different benefits and only use part of this benefit. Or intermittent leave. Intermittent leave is, you take 2 weeks, you come back to work for a month, you take 6 weeks, things of that nature. Intermittent leave is the only one that we know of that the employer can actually deny. So if somebody plans on taking intermittent leave, takes, say, paternity, a father wants to take the first couple weeks to be with his wife and help her out, and then down the road, once her maternity leave is up, wants to take the remainder of it, he actually has to talk to his employer first, approve that with them, because it is able to be denied. Whereas if you're just taking the leave all 12 weeks continuous at once, it's not able to be denied unless it's fraudulent. So after you do that, it actually sends over a notice to your employer that basically says that the app's been started, so that they have a heads up that something's coming soon. There's no action required yet. Part 2 is where they find out how they're going to pay you. So direct deposit or paper check. The state does prefer direct deposit, so I highly suggest you do that, and you're going to have to type in your account information. And then part 3 is uploading the documents. So that's what we talked about earlier: driver's license, certificate of birth. There are other options. If you have an employee that doesn't have a driver's license or things of that nature, they have a list of other documents that are sufficient. But once you upload, you review it, you submit, and then a notice is generated to the employer that the app's been submitted. And that's where the action items for us come in, for your employer. So that's where you have that approval and denial process that we're going to go through next. So the employer side, a couple kind of caveats and disclaimers first. The department will not accept a claim from the employee unless the employee certifies that their employer was notified. So if in that employee application, they fill out, no, I didn't notify my employer, it will not be accepted. The employers, like we talked about, they'll be notified when an application started, when it's been submitted, and then when they complete their review. The department will request information from the employer prior to finalizing. We'll go over those next. It's a very simple process. I think for me, it took about 10 minutes to approve Erica's leave, and it probably would have taken me less if I was an OCD and took my time and, took screenshots and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty fairly easy on both ends. And we already talked about this, but an employer can only reject a claim if they believe that the employer is claiming it fraudulently, or if something's missing, or they've already used their max amount of leave for the year. So if they've already taken that full 26 weeks, they're not able to apply for another in that same calendar year. So this is what it looks like to you. If you haven't set up your employer leave administrator account yet, please do so. Even if no one's currently claiming leave, this is where all of the notifications go. They go directly to your email. You are able to set up more than one though. So if you want your employer, the owner to have one, but also your HR, head of HR to have one, you're able to, hey Deb, how is the employer notified of claim? Email, MassGov website. Yep, so that's actually what we're talking about right now. So it goes directly to the email address as long as you've set up that employer leave administrator account. If you haven't yet, you still can. It may require you to reach out to the state if anyone has set one up already and you're trying to set up a second one. But it all goes to email. You get it directly to your email address. With the start, with the completion, and when it's approved. So you review. So once you set that up, you get the email, you click on the link, it pulls up the application. You review it and edit. The only things you can really edit is hours if they're not accurate. So, if they aren't a consistent employee and they have put 30 hours when it's really only 22, you can update it in there. You have to say whether or not the employee gave you 30 days notice, and then you approve or deny. But like we talked about, even if you deny, they can still approve the request if all the statutory requirements are met. And it also asks if you have any additional comments or concerns. So that's where you could put, why you believe it's fraudulent, things of that nature. If they have a certain work schedule or benefits that they'll be using first or beforehand. As we talked about, most programs are no double dipping. So that's where you can put that. And then here's a timeline. So I'm laughing because in our experience, this isn't even close to accurate. The application completed by the employee, yes, takes about 15 minutes. The employer response, you have up to 10 business days to answer, and then they review the documentation. Erica, if you want to chime in here, I know that you've had experience with it taking a little bit longer than that 14 days to get approval. So
the steps 1 through 4 are pretty accurate. The actual application process was very simple. The amount of time to get a response was within 10 days. I was kind of in the guinea pig timeline because I had my baby before January 1st. But I could not apply until January 1st. So I had to wait until January 1st, even though I should have already started leave at that point. So I did have to wait. Most people are applying for future dates right now and are getting their approval process and letter pretty quickly already back before they're even going out on maternity leave. So I was expecting a longer wait time, and honestly, it went a lot faster than I thought it was going to. So their application process is very simple. They upload a letter to your paid leave account, and it tells you, in my experience, it said that, you would get your first payment within 14 calendar days of your approval notice. 14 days came and went, and there was no payments. So it actually, after, a couple of phone calls to them, the great thing is that they actually have live people you can speak to. It's not an automated message. So you're not talking to a robot. So they have, actual people there at the department. after calling them, they said it would take 30 days to receive my first payment. And that is exactly what happened. So the letter that was a little deceiving, it did say 14 calendar days. That's not actually what happened. So if you do have an employee going out on leave, I would forewarn them that there is and possibly could be a delay up to 30 days. The next thing is on the approval notice, it does say, I just lost my train of thought. It does say, what was the other thing, Amber?
The 7-day.
It says that your weekly benefit amount is on there. So they tell you it's a weekly benefit amount, but they're actually only paying out the benefits bi-weekly. So that is another thing probably to forewarn your employee if they're expecting a weekly paycheck. It's going to be coming on a bi-weekly basis. So there's a couple of things. I think they're still working out their kinks. But once the payments were approved and within that 30-day period, they were direct deposited. The other thing about the departments is their application department and their payment department are completely separate. They don't talk to each other. They don't have any way of really communicating with each other. So if you do have questions on payments, I personally did not get any information back from the payment department. So thankfully it all came through before I came back to work. So here we are now, but there are some delays. And like I said, I was in the guinea pig period, so I'm hoping the program gets a little bit better. They may have changed their letters by then. But just forewarn employees that are going out and they're not going to get a payment within the first, week or two of being out on leave. So it could change by the time, they actually do go out on leave, but personal experience, it's taking a little bit longer. I think anything that, involves the state is going to be a little bit delayed. So just expect that right off the bat.
And you said there's no way to call the payment center directly, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you're kind of at the whim of the state to handle it with their payment department and then get back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Okay. So we're actually, like I said, it's going to be a simple one today. And we're here for any questions, things of that nature. Like Erica discussed, they actually pick up the phone, which is huge for any government
The first
program.
time I called, it was very short wait time. If you call, they'll tell you how many people are in line. One time I called and there were 62 people in front of me. So they will call you back. They'll hold your spot in line and call you back. So you're not sitting on the phone for that long. I have not had to call on the employer side, but I'm sure it's very similar. If you're an employer and you have questions, they will, I think there's a prompt if you're an employee versus an employer for questions. So if you do have specific questions to your company, definitely call them. They're there. And they're great about answering questions. Like I said, I just think they're still working out their kinks on the program, but I think it's a great program for people who do need, the paid leave.
Absolutely. Yeah. I will say that I'm not fully convinced that it's going to pay for itself just yet. So I see the tax being increased within the next year or two. We'll see how that works, or a different tax kind of going in to hide the fact that it can't pay for itself. But we'll kind of deal with all of those issues as they come. As of now, no tax changes have been implemented. So it's still the same rates as of right now for the foreseeable future. We're not sure if rates are going to change based on people actually claiming or not. We're not sure if rates are going to change year to year yet. So we'll see how that goes. But we're open for questions right now. If anybody has any, go ahead and pop them in. This all will be sent out to all attendees and absentees. And feel free to forward it to anybody that that's an employer and needs this information. It's a pretty easy topic to grasp and understand. The approval process and the application process is fairly simple, which is great.
Do you want to talk about the employers that are like closed seasonally for employees that want to take leave? I think you had mentioned that there was some information that the state had put out if you're a seasonal employee that you're not able to take leave.
That's correct. Yeah, that's a great reminder. Yeah. So we were on a call with the state last week, and they did explain that if you're a seasonal employee, so say you typically don't work from around here we're
December to
mostly Cape,
March.
right? So
Yeah.
October to May or so. If that's the case and you're trying to claim leave during that period that you don't typically work, you can't claim it. They won't accept it because they wouldn't typically be getting paid. So keep that in mind. Most people that are seasonal employers will either get a different job, so you would be applicable for this, or they go on unemployment. If you're on unemployment, you can't. That's a great question, Deb. No, you can't let them run separately together. So you can't have both unemployment and claim this benefit. That was a very good question. Right now, no, there's no additional charge back to the employer. That was a good question as well.
It's not like unemployment insurance where if they use it, you get dinged for it. This is something most employers that we work with aren't required to pay in for the employee. It's really just, it's coming out as the employee taxes. So they're paying for it. But no, there's nothing that the employer will get dinged for an employee taking this leave. Just you having to find an employee,
Yep.
Fill that space while they're gone.
Yes. And as a reminder, if you do fill that space while they're gone, unless you have something in that contract with the replacement employee that they are temporary, you cannot let them go upon the person starting back. That's not it would be treated as being fired or laid off. So just keep that in mind, unless that's actually in your employment contract, you cannot fire that person upon the other person returning back to work, if that makes any sense. Erica, I'm going to actually let you answer this one on the money pay that the employee receives.
Sure. So on the state website, if you go to mass.gov, you can put in a search for a calculator. The employee can put in, what they normally take home for their gross wages, and it gives them an estimate on how much they will be making as their weekly benefit. It's not, I actually found the estimate was lower than what I actually received for my leave. So it does have a disclaimer that it's not guaranteed that that's the amount. So it's around 70%. I believe it's a little bit more than short-term disability, which is 60. So the benefit's great. The only thing is, I think they still haven't decided if it's taxable income. There's no taxes taken out of it. So for your employee, it's probably going to be close to their take-home pay, but there is no taxes taken out of it. So they will probably owe some tax on that when they go to file their tax return. But on the state website, there is a calculator that they can put in their gross wages to find out kind of an estimate on how much they would be taking home on the leave. If it's, some people might not find it worth it, but
it's actually that's a great point to bring up. The state on that call also said that they're still waiting from the IRS to find out if this is taxable income or not, which is kind of crazy because, we've been withholding tax from people for over a year now, but they are not sure yet whether it's taxable or not. In my, if I had a magic 8-ball in front of me or a crystal globe, I think it's going to be taxable. I think it's going to be treated exactly like unemployment. So that's how I would handle it. And then if it's not, awesome, great, you put this money away and you don't have to spend it.
The difference with unemployment is you can opt to have taxes deducted from your take-home pay. You do not get that option. Does not ask that on the employee application if you want taxes taken out, which means
the employee is probably going to assume that it's not taxable. So, when you're telling them that no, you don't get paid weekly, you get paid bi-weekly, and when you're telling them no, you're actually going to have to wait 30 days for a payment, also let them know, yes, put some money away because you're going to owe tax. I would rather be safe and withhold and be careful about it than be sorry in the long run and end up owing money after you've taken leave and gotten potentially less in your paycheck every week than you typically do. So unless there's any kind of monitoring the Q&A section. Unless there's any other questions, feel free, even if you want to raise your hand and talk live, you're more than welcome. But we'll give it about a minute or so, see if any other questions come through. And if not, I hope you all enjoy your day. I hope we didn't take up too much of your time. I hope you learned something. It pops up a survey at the end of it, so if you could fill that out completely and honestly, that would be really appreciated. We're hosting webinars now on almost a bi-monthly basis, so anything we can do to improve them, we definitely want to. And like I said, if there was one person in here that wasn't withholding tax yet, please feel free to reach out to us. I'll share our contact page one more time, just so you can write down our information. We are happy to help get you in compliance. So let us know if you need anything. I'll leave this up for about 30 seconds, and I hope you all have a great day. Awesome. Bye, everybody.